I got a call on my cell phone, and it was a client of mine, and he said, there's been a raid, you have to come down here. By the time I got to New Bedford, it was probably not even 10 o'clock yet. The day never stopped from that point on.
6 de marzo del 2007. Lo primero que ocurrió ese día, recuerdo de que para empezar el carro no quería encender. Y era una señal que pues que quizás Dios nos estaba avisando para que ese día no fuéramos a trabajar. Resulta de que como a las 8:20 de la mañana escuchamos un micrófono que lo levantaron así pues y dijeron y que apagáramos las máquinas. Sentí una voz detrás de mí y me dice, por favor, no corran. Me lo dijo en inglés, don't run. Y en las puertas había también otro montón. El helicóptero arriba de la compañía. Y vimos alrededor, así, bastantes oficiales alrededor de nosotros. Pues habían grupos de personas que corrían hacia las puertas, que querían escapar, pero ahí los detenían porque todas las puertas estaban ya selladas. Ya. Yo tenía a mi hija trabajando hacia atrás de mí, allá al fondo, y pues me preocupaba mucho por ella. Dije yo, ¿cómo estará? O era como un hormiguero cuando pues uno alborota un hormiguero, así. Unos corrían para un lado, para otro y para otro, y aquel era un caos, la verdad.
The family members that were outside behind the barricades, they recognized me, they called out to me, they were crying. The road was blocked off, but there were so many ICE agents in front of the building. And it just felt like we were so near and yet so far. They were not budging on us being able to communicate with anybody inside. And that was really heartbreaking for me as an attorney because I felt everyone has a right to speak to an attorney. And it just felt like there was this clash between enforcement and the law.
Michael Bianco had several government contracts to make knapsacks, to make shoes. And if you have a government contract with the United States, you can't, it's illegal it's illegal anyway to hire someone in the country illegally, but certainly it rises to more of a criminal level when you have a government contract. One of the companies or one of the businesses that was right around the corner from Michael Bianco was setting workers up with counterfeit documents. Eventually, we put a female undercover agent in there to see what was going on.
Cuando la mujer llegó a ese lugar a trabajar y me dice, voy a ser tu compañera de trabajo, yo voy a trabajar contigo aquí a la par. Hablaba y cosía, hablaba. Y me preguntaba, pero nunca paraba de preguntar. Ese día que los cogieron, ella no estaba trabajando. Y yo estaba sentado y yo no aguantaba ya ni las nalgas. De frío, estaba frisado. Entonces allí sí ya venía la mujer que había estado platicando conmigo mucho tiempo. Y la reacción que ella nomás ve, me dice, hola Carlos. Ella sí ya estaba con su uniforme. Aquí atrás decía, ay, esta mujer era de migración, dije yo. Yo me asusté. Yo tuve miedo todo lo que yo había conversado con ella. Porque yo le dije dónde yo vivía, con quiénes yo vivía, dónde entré, en qué año entré. Aquí todos trabajan, le dije yo, con papeles chuecos.
Our investigation began criminally and then morphed into a situation where direction from headquarters ultimately was to administratively arrest these people that were in the United States working illegally. This is going to be about protecting the homeland. For people to say, oh, we had no idea this was coming, that's absolutely false. People, especially the politicians, knew exactly this was coming. You know, it was kind of like a dirty little secret in New Bedford that these people were working and they weren't in the country legally.
So the city's dirty secret would be the federal government's dirty secret. So I don't buy that for a minute. Reason I was given as to why there was this raid was because this was an owner that was taking advantage of the workers. But yeah, the first thing when they sat down was, look, we need to talk to you about something that's completely confidential. And the person who brought them to see me was the police chief. The only people that I know of in the city that were informed was the police chief and me. Nobody else.
Iban un montón de motos como custodiando el bus, como que éramos los peores delincuentes. Y nosotros, sin saber para dónde íbamos. Yo tenía 2 hijos menores, estaban estudiando en la high school. Y mi hermana se enteró temprano quizás lo que pasó ahí. Y entonces llegó a la casa de ella y ahí les contó ya todo.
¿Qué recuerdan sus hijos de eso?
Sí, bien doloroso.
And the buses pulled away, and it was heart-wrenching because people were crying, that were standing there. And so we all went to the church basement, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and it was just super crowded in there. And we just tried to separate triage, into what are some basic needs, what are some legal needs, and also trying to make a list of all the people. The adrenaline of the moment kind of carries you. And so throughout the day, I was laser focused on what needed to be done, what had to be done, remembering what it was like to be, caring for your child as a mother, as a nursing mother. I felt guilty, actually, going home that night.
El vivir eso pues, fue muy cruel para nosotros. Y muy duro. Muy duro. Hace mucho tiempo y como que fuera en este momento. A mí me dolía verla a ella llorar. Ella lloraba. Cuando tenía con su esposa, ella lloraba. Mami me decía, no se preocupe, ya vamos a seguir.
Remember distinctly was trying to get a hold of Chertoff, who was the head of Homeland Security, and saying to him, do you realize that we have pretty close to 100 kids who are associated with the people you just deported in the city who I am now the guardian of as mayor? Do you realize that our school system has 100 kids who normally go home at night to parents, and the parents aren't going to be there? Do you realize that there's a half a dozen or so, or a dozen kids who are still or infants who are being nursed by their mothers? The idea that you'd round them all up, put them in a bus, say, hey, don't worry about it, I know you're supposed to be home at 4, but you're going to be home maybe never, you may be deported right away. It doesn't work for a city.
Here's the thing, I've been asked this question before. Who's responsible for this? The people who came into the United States illegally. Are they responsible for the separation they had with their children? Absolutely. For someone to jump over a fence and to come in illegally, there's so many strains put on national security because you've never vetted that person. You have no idea. We used to make arrests of people involved with rapes and murders back in their home country, and now they're in the United States because they jumped the fence illegally. They were never vetted.
So there was nothing in New Bedford happening that needed the drama and the dramatic raid that took place. This wasn't a situation where they were rounding up MS-13 and saying, you're very welcome, we've just resolved a major issue for your city. It was working people. These were people who were assimilating, like it or not, based on the immigration system, into our economic system, into our social system, creating their own community.
What was happening then and continues to happen today is that employers were taking advantage of those who, again, didn't have a voice, didn't have documentation. Not much happened to the employers who were hiring these undocumented workers, whereas families were torn apart.
Todos somos hermanos, como hermanos, hijos de Dios todos. La palabra ilegal ni debería de existir, la verdad, no sé ni de dónde la sacaron porque no existe, no debe existir ilegal. No somos delincuentes, la verdad, somos personas humildes, trabajadoras, que venimos a ganarnos aquí pues la vida con el trabajo, ¿verdad? Con el sudor de nuestra frente. Como humanos que somos, deberían, pues, para mí, darnos esa oportunidad, ¿verdad? De poder obtener un documento, ¿verdad? Pues humanamente, hablando humanamente.